everything you saw was a lie. Think about the last time you scrolled through someone's social media. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was a stranger. Maybe it was someone with millions of followers. They had the perfect life, the perfect face, the perfect relationship, the perfect career. Everything looked exactly the way life is supposed to look. But what if none of it was real? What if behind every picture-perfect post there was a person sitting in a completely different reality, scared, desperate, and working overtime to make sure you never found out the truth? Today, I want to tell you about real people, real names, real stories, people who built entire double lives on social media, who fooled millions of followers, journalists, investors, and friends. And eventually, the internet caught up with every single one of them. Stay with me, because some of what I am about to tell you, you will not believe. Welcome back to Coded Uncommon. If you are new here, this channel is about one thing: understanding why people do what they do, the psychology behind the choices that shock the world. And today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most fascinating and disturbing patterns of the social media age: the double life. Let us start at the beginning. Imagine this. You open Instagram. The first post you see is a woman standing on a cliff in Santorini, Greece. She is wearing a white linen dress. The sunset behind her is unreal. The caption says, "Living my best life, grateful every single day." 200,000 likes. The next post is a man in a penthouse apartment in New York City. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Manhattan that most people will never see in their lifetime. He is laughing, relaxed, confident. The caption says, "Built this from nothing. Hard work always pays off." 150,000 likes. We look at these images and we feel something. Maybe inspiration. Maybe envy. Maybe a quiet little voice inside us that whispers, "Why is their life so much better than mine?" And that question, that tiny little insecurity, is exactly what these people were counting on. Because here is the thing about social media. It was never designed to show you reality. It was designed to show you the best possible version of a person. Life. The most flattering angle. The most beautiful moment. Edited, filtered, and carefully chosen from thousands of attempts to get it right. But most people who do this are just showing off a little. Harmless, human, normal. What we are talking about today is something much darker. We are talking about people who used that technology to construct an entirely different identity. A completely fake life. A character they played every single day for months, sometimes years, until the stage collapsed underneath them. The first story I want to tell you about is the story of Belle Gibson, and I want you to pay close attention, because this one is not just about social media. This one is about something far more unforgivable. Belle Gibson was an Australian wellness blogger who rose to massive fame around 2013 and 2014. She was young, beautiful, and she had a story that made people stop scrolling. Belle claimed that at the age of 20, she had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Not just any cancer, terminal. The kind they tell you there is no coming back from. But then, she said, she healed herself. Through whole food eating, natural living, and the sheer will to survive. She documented her entire recovery journey on Instagram and on her blog called The Whole Pantry. She wrote a cookbook. She built an app. She secured a partnership with Apple. She gave interviews. She appeared on television. She raised money for charity. And the world believed her, completely, without question. Because who would lie about having cancer? Belle Gibson would. In 2015, Australian journalists began investigating her story. They could not find medical records. They could not verify her diagnosis. They could not find any doctor who had treated her. When confronted, Belle's story changed, multiple times. She gave a confused, evasive interview to an Australian magazine in which she essentially admitted she could not confirm the cancer story. Then she said she may have been misdiagnosed. Then she went quiet. Investigators later found that she had also kept a significant portion of the charity money she had promised to donate to various causes. She had collected money from her followers in the name of sick children and vulnerable families, and large sums of it simply never arrived. In 2017, Belle Gibson was fined over $400,000 by Australian consumer regulators for misleading conduct. She was unable to pay it. At the time of her last known interview, she showed almost no remorse for what she had done. Hundreds of thousands of followers, a book deal, an Apple partnership, a charity, all of it built on a lie about a woman dying of cancer who was never sick at all. Before I tell you the next story, I want to pause for a moment. Because the most important question in all of this is not what they did, it is why. Why would someone build a double life? Why would they choose a path that requires daily maintenance of a lie, that demands constant vigilance, constant performance, constant fear that today might be the day everything falls apart? The answer is complicated, but at its core, it almost always comes back to the same thing: validation. Psychologists have studied what happens to the human brain when it receives social approval. Likes, comments, shares, follower counts, they all trigger the release of dopamine, the same chemical your brain produces when you eat something delicious, when you fall in love, when you win. Dopamine is the brain's reward signal. It says, do that again. Now imagine that every time you post a version of yourself that is slightly more successful, slightly more beautiful, slightly more impressive than reality, the numbers go up. The dopamine floods in, and the real, imperfect, ordinary version of yourself gets a little quieter, a little smaller, a little less worth showing the world. That is how it starts for most people. Not with a grand plan to deceive the world, but with one small embellishment, one slightly altered story, one carefully cropped photograph, and then another, and another, until the gap between who you actually are and who your followers believe grows wider and wider, that you cannot imagine crossing back. Some psychologists call this the Facebook effect, though it applies to every platform. The pressure to perform a curated, idealized version of yourself becomes so normalized that you forget you are even performing. The mask fuses to your face. And for some people, the ones we are talking about today, that mask becomes the foundation of a business, of a brand, of a livelihood. And at that point, the lie is no longer just psychological, it is financial. And that is when things get truly dangerous. The second story is one that genuinely reads like fiction, and yet every single detail of it is real. Her name was Anna Sorokin. But to New York's most elite social circles, to the luxury hotels, the private banks, the exclusive art galleries, and the Manhattan high society she moved through so effortlessly, she was Anna Delvey, a German heiress, heir to a vast European fortune, a woman who had more money than most people would ever see in a lifetime. On social media, the image was impeccable: designer clothes, first-class flights, five-star hotels. She was photographed at Fashion Week, at gallery openings, at rooftop parties with the kind of people whose names you recognize. Her Instagram projected exactly the image she needed it to: wealth, taste, power. There was just one problem. Anna Delvey did not exist. Anna Sorokin was born in Russia and grew up in a working-class family in Germany. Her father drove a truck for a living. She had no inheritance, no trust fund, no European fortune. She had a stolen identity, extraordinary nerve, and an almost incomprehensible ability to convince the most sophisticated people in the world to believe she was something she was not. Over roughly 2 years, Anna Sorokin defrauded New York banks, hotels, and individuals of approximately $275,000. She attempted to secure a $62 million loan to fund a private members club called the Anna Delvey Foundation. She convinced a friend to pay for a $40,000 trip to Morocco, promising to pay her back from her vast fortune. She never did. When she was finally arrested in 2017, investigators found that her entire life had been a performance. The expensive hotels she stayed in, she frequently skipped out on bills, sometimes owing tens of thousands of dollars. The clothes, the lifestyle, the social connections, all maintained with borrowed money, fraudulent checks, and sheer audacity. In 2019, Anna Sorokin was convicted of grand larceny and theft of services. She was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. Netflix later made a documentary series about her life called Inventing Anna. In an interview, Anna seemed more concerned about the accuracy of her wardrobe in the show than about the people she had harmed. $275,000, stolen from real people who trusted a woman who did not exist. Now, I want to talk about something that every single person who has ever built a double life eventually discovers. And that is this: The internet remembers everything. Absolutely everything. There is a moment in every story like this. A single crack. It is always something small. A detail that does not match. A date that contradicts another date. A background in a photograph that does not line up with the story being told. One person noticing something and saying, "Wait, that is not right." And then it spreads. Because the internet does not forget. And the internet is full of people who are very, very good at finding inconsistencies. People who will spend 8 hours going through 3 years of social media posts to find the moment where the story stopped making sense. Once that first thread is pulled, the whole thing unravels. Old posts are screenshot and archived before they can be deleted. People who knew the person in real life start speaking up. Former friends, former employers, former partners, all saying some version of the same thing. "I knew something was wrong. I just could not prove it." The person who has been living the double life usually responds in one of 3 ways. They deny everything and go on the attack, accusing their accusers of jealousy, hatred, obsession. They disappear, deleting accounts, going silent, hoping it blows over. Or they confess, sometimes partially, sometimes fully.
Usually only once they realize there is no other option. None of these responses save them, because the evidence is already out there. Screenshots live forever. And the one thing more viral than a carefully crafted lie is the truth that destroys it. The third story is one that showed the world just how powerful and how dangerous social media lies can be. Because this one did not just fool a few people. It fooled hundreds. And it did not just steal money. It destroyed careers, traumatized local workers, and exposed something deeply unsettling about the way we trust what we see online. In 2017, a man named Billy McFarland, along with rapper Ja Rule, announced the Fyre Festival, a luxury music festival set on a private island in the Bahamas, an island they claimed had once belonged to Pablo Escobar. They hired 27 of the world's top social media influencers, including models like Bella Hadid and Emily Ratajkowski, to post a single orange tile on Instagram simultaneously. No words. Just that tile. It broke the internet. Then came the promotional video. Crystal clear water. White sand beaches. Supermodels in bikinis. Private villas. Gourmet dining. A lineup of major musical artists. Tickets sold for anywhere from $1,500 to more than $250,000 for the luxury experience packages. And people paid it. Thousands of them. When the guests arrived in the Bahamas, many having flown in from across the world, they found a construction site. Disaster relief tents instead of luxury villas. Mattresses that had been soaked in rain. A food package that went viral. A photograph of a sad cold cheese sandwich in a styrofoam box that someone had paid thousands of dollars to eat. The musical acts canceled. The infrastructure non-existent. The island, very much not the one from the promotional video. Thousands of people were stranded, desperate, and defrauded. Local Bahamian workers who had been promised payment for months
of preparation were left without their wages. Some had given everything they had to make the festival happen, and received nothing. Billy McFarland was arrested, convicted of wire fraud, and sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. Netflix released a devastating documentary about the entire disaster. Hulu released another one. He was released early from prison, and within months he was selling Fyre Festival 2 merchandise. Some people never learn. Here is what I want you to take away from all of this. Not anger, not judgment, but understanding. Every single person in these stories, Belle Gibson, Anna Sorokin, Billy McFarland, they all exploited the same fundamental truth about human beings. We want to believe. We want the beautiful story to be real. We want the cancer survivor's wellness journey to be genuine because it gives us hope. We want the glamorous heiress to be exactly who she says she is because her world is fascinating. We want the perfect island festival to exist because it is the kind of magic we all secretly dream of experiencing. Our desire to believe is not a weakness. It is one of the most beautiful things about us. It is what makes us trusting and generous and open to one another. But it is also the exact quality that the people in these stories turned into a weapon. And here is the other thing I want you to hold on to. There are people with 1/10 of the followers of Belle Gibson, 1/10 of the notoriety of Anna Delvey, 1/10 of the scale of the Fyre Festival, doing exactly the same thing right now. On Instagram. On TikTok, in your own circle, maybe in someone you follow, maybe in someone you trust. The lie does not have to be massive to cause real damage. Sometimes the most harmful double lives are the small ones. The person who pretends to be successful to attract a romantic partner. The person who pretends to be kind and generous online while being cruel in private. The person who performs a value system they do not actually hold, for followers, for money, for admiration. The internet always finds out. It might take a week. It might take 3 years. But the cracks always appear. And when they do, there is nowhere left to hide. I want to end this video with something I genuinely believe. Something that I think matters more today than it ever has. Authenticity is not just the right thing to do. It is the only sustainable strategy. The people who have built the most enduring, most trusted presences online, the ones who are still here 5-10 years later, are almost never the ones with the most perfect image. They are the ones who showed up honestly, who said, "Here is who I am. Here are my struggles. Here is what I actually know. And here is what I am still figuring out." That kind of honesty does not just build an audience. It builds something far more valuable. It builds genuine human trust. The kind that does not crumble the moment someone finds a crack in the story. Because there is no crack. Because the story is true. The people we talked about today thought they were building something. An empire. A brand. A legacy. What they were actually building was a house of cards. And houses of cards only have one ending. Whatever you are building online, whatever image you are putting into the world, let it be something that could survive the light. Let it be something that does not require constant maintenance, constant fear, constant performance. Let it be true enough that you could show the cracks and the whole thing would still hold together. Because the world does not need another perfect persona. What it is starving for, what it has always been starving for, is someone real. If this video made you think, even for a second, about how much we trust what we see online, then it did its job. Share it with someone who needs